Discipline is the foundation of strength, the anchor that holds you steady when the storms of emotion threaten to tear you apart. Emotions are deceptive. They fluctuate, shift, and manipulate your perception of reality. One day you feel motivated, ready to take on the world. The next, you wake up exhausted, uncertain, weighed down by self-doubt. If you rely on emotions to determine your actions, you will never build anything lasting, because emotions are fleeting, but discipline endures. You have to understand that discipline is not about feeling like doing something. It is about doing it regardless of how you feel. The greatest men and women who have shaped history were not driven by how they felt in the moment. They were driven by an unshakable commitment to something greater than themselves. They woke up early when they wanted to sleep in. They worked relentlessly when their emotions begged them to quit. They pushed forward not because they always felt strong, but because they refused to let temporary feelings dictate the course of their lives. That's the difference between those who succeed and those who don't. Weak people let emotions control them. They only go to the gym when they feel like it. They only chase their dreams when they're in the mood. They only study, work, or improve themselves when motivation strikes. And so their progress is inconsistent. They start and stop. They build and destroy. They move forward and then slide back into old patterns. Why? Because they never learned to separate their actions from their emotions. But discipline is different. Discipline means showing up even when you don't want to. It means training yourself to take action regardless of how you feel. Because in the grand scheme of life, your emotions are unreliable. One day they tell you you're unstoppable, the next they whisper that you're a failure. But your actions, your daily habits, those define you. And that's why discipline is the force that separates the strong from the weak. When you allow emotions to dictate your choices, you hand over control of your life to something unstable. Think about it. How many times have you let anger make a decision for you, only to regret it later? How often have you avoided a challenge because fear convinced you that you weren't ready? How many times have you sat around waiting for motivation that never came? Emotions are not the enemy, but they are not the leaders of your life either. They are signals, they are indicators, but they should never be the ones steering the wheel. You must take control. You must decide consciously that no matter what you feel in the moment, your commitment remains unchanged. This is not an easy path. Most people will never take it. Most people will allow their emotions to define them. They will let their insecurities hold them back, let their doubts dictate their choices, let their moods sabotage their future. And years from now, they will look back and wonder why they never achieved what they were capable of. But the truth is, they didn't fail because they weren't talented. They didn't fail because the world was against them. They failed because they never mastered their emotions. They never built the discipline to act in spite of them. And so the question you must ask yourself is this: who do you want to be? Do you want to be the person who is ruled by emotions, who waits for the perfect moment, who starts strong but never follows through? Or do you want to be the person who rises above feelings, who stays committed, who builds strength not on the shifting sands of emotion but on the solid ground of discipline? Because at the end of the day, discipline wins. It outlasts fear, it outlasts doubt, it outlasts the highs and lows of emotional states. And if you master it, if you train yourself to act not based on feeling, but on principle, you will unlock a level of strength that most people will never reach. You will become unstoppable. Your mind is the architect of your reality. The way you think, the beliefs you hold, the words you repeat to yourself, these things are not passive. They are the foundation upon which your life is built. And the truth is, most people don't realize the power they have. They don't understand that their mind is shaping their reality every single day. Instead, they walk through life reacting, letting their circumstances dictate their thoughts, letting their failures define them, letting their emotions control their perception of what's possible. But that's the difference between those who rise and those who remain stuck. The ones who rise understand that the mind can be trained, refined, disciplined into something greater. And once you take control of it, once you decide to reprogram the way you think, you begin to reshape the world around you. Most people think that success, strength, or greatness is about external factors, luck, opportunity, talent. But that's a lie. It's always been a lie. Because there are people who had nothing, no support, no advantage, no perfect timing, but they built themselves up anyway. They refused to accept the version of reality that was handed to them. They didn't just live in their circumstances, they transformed them. How? They controlled their mind, they controlled the way they thought, and that changed the way they acted, and that changed the results they got. But here's the problem. Most people don't do this. Most people live in mental prisons of their own making. They tell themselves stories about why they can't succeed, why they're not good enough, why it's impossible for them. And because they believe those things, they make them real. The mind is powerful, but it doesn't distinguish between what's true and what's simply repeated. If you tell yourself you're weak, you will act weak. If you tell yourself you're a failure, you will sabotage yourself. If you tell yourself you'll never change, you won't. It's not because you're doomed, it's because your mind is following the program you've given it. You have to rewrite that program. You have to take control of what you believe about yourself. And this isn't some vague feel-good idea. This is real. It's practical. Because the way you think determines how you act, and how you act determines where you end up in life. If you want strength, you need to think like someone who is strong. If you want success, you need to think like someone who is unstoppable. It doesn't start when you achieve the goal. It starts the moment you decide to reprogram your mind to match the life you want. And it won't happen overnight. Your old beliefs, your old thought patterns, they will fight to stay alive. They will whisper in your ear that you're wasting your time, that you'll never change, that this is just how life is. But those voices are not truth. They are habits. They are echoes of a past that no longer serves you. And if you keep feeding them, they will control you. But if you challenge them, if you refuse to let them define you, then something incredible happens. The voice of doubt gets quieter. The excuses lose their grip. And for the first time, you realize that you are not a prisoner of your past. You are not bound by the limits you once believed in. You are in control. That's the moment everything shifts. Because once you realize that you can change the way you think, you realize that you can change anything. You stop waiting for permission. You stop blaming your circumstances. You stop being at the mercy of fear, insecurity, and weakness, and instead, you start creating the reality you want. You start acting as the person you were meant to be, not the person you used to be. And day by day, your actions align with your new beliefs, and your life begins to change. But understand this isn't easy. Most people won't do it. Most people will continue living in the same mental loops, repeating the same limiting beliefs, following the same patterns that have held them back for years. But you don't have to be one of them. You have a choice. And if you make the right one, if you commit to taking control of your mind, you will discover something extraordinary. That the limits you thought were real were never real at all. Pain is an unavoidable part of life. You will face it no matter what path you take. There is no version of existence that is free from suffering. The difference, the thing that separates those who rise from those who collapse under its weight, is what you choose to do with that pain. Because pain itself is temporary, but the transformation it brings is permanent. The suffering will pass, but what it leaves behind, your strength, your wisdom, your resilience, those things will stay with you forever. Most people don't see it that way. They experience pain and immediately want it to end. They want to escape, numb it, avoid it at all costs. They see it as something unfair, something cruel, something that should not exist. But suffering is not the enemy. Suffering is the test. And if you see it for what it truly is, it becomes the very thing that forges you into something greater. Because think about this. Every time you've grown, every time you've become stronger, every time you've evolved into a better version of yourself, it was because you endured something difficult. You struggled, you suffered, you faced a challenge that pushed you to your limits. And on the other side of that struggle, you were not the same person anymore. You had gained something unshakable, something that no one could take from you. That's the nature of growth. It demands something from you. It demands sacrifice. It demands discomfort. It demands that you walk through the fire and come out the other side, not as the same fragile person you were, but as someone new, someone stronger, wiser, more capable than before. That's why pain is not just pain. It's an opportunity. It's an invitation to rise. But most people never embrace it. They run from it. And in running, they lose the very thing that could have transformed them. Because when you avoid struggle, when you shield yourself from discomfort, you do not stay the same. You shrink, you weaken. You rob yourself of the very experiences that could have made you unstoppable. And the worst part, the pain doesn't disappear, it just takes a different form. It shows up as regret, as self-doubt, as a slow creeping realization that you never became what you were capable of becoming. So the question is not whether or not you will suffer, the question is, will you make it count? Will you take the pain and use it? Will you endure it, push through it, allow it to sharpen you into something greater? Or will you let it break you? Because those are the only two choices. Pain does not leave you unchanged. It either destroys you or it builds you. But you decide which one it will be. Look at the strongest people you know, the ones who inspire you, the ones who command respect. Do you think they got there by living easy lives? No. They got there because they suffered and refused to let that suffering make them weak. They endured, they learned, they adapted, they made the pain work for them, and because of that, they grew into something extraordinary. You have that same choice. You have that same ability. And it starts now. It starts in the moment when everything feels overwhelming, when the weight of your struggle seems unbearable, when you want to quit. That's when it matters. That's when you decide, will this be the thing that breaks me, or will this be the thing that makes me stronger? And if you choose to endure, if you choose to embrace the pain and push forward anyway, you will discover something incredible. You will look back and realize that the suffering was never permanent, but the strength you gained from it was. The struggle passed, but the growth remained. The old version of you, the weaker version, the one who doubted, the one who hesitated, will be gone. And in their place will stand someone new. Someone who knows that pain is temporary, but what it leaves behind is yours forever. Fear and doubt have held more people back than any real obstacle ever could. Not because they are insurmountable, not because they are powerful, but because people believe them to be. And that is the tragedy of it. Fear and doubt are illusions, but they are illusions so convincing, so persuasive, that they shape reality itself. They whisper to you, telling you that you are not ready, that you are not capable, that you will fail. And if you listen, if you give those voices authority, they will control you. They will dictate the course of your life, and they will make their illusions real. But here's the truth. Fear does not exist in the present. It is a projection into the future. It is the mind crafting scenarios, inventing failures that have not yet happened, painting a picture of disaster and then treating it as fact. And doubt is nothing more than fear turned inward. It is the belief that you are incapable, that you are inadequate, that you are somehow unworthy of the challenges before you. But none of that is real. None of it is grounded in truth. It is simply a pattern of thinking, a habit that you have reinforced over time. And if something is a habit, it can be broken. Look at your past. Look at every moment where fear told you to turn back, every time doubt convinced you that you weren't good enough. And then ask yourself, was it true? Did the worst happen, or did you survive? Did you adapt? Did you find a way through? Because if you're here now, if you are still standing, then that means every single fear you have ever had has already been proven wrong. Every doubt that has ever plagued you has already failed to stop you. But still, they persist. And the reason they persist is because you have not yet decided to stop listening. The difference between those who achieve greatness and those who remain stagnant is not the absence of fear. It is not that they never experience doubt. It is that they move forward anyway. They recognize that fear is just a feeling, that doubt is just a thought, and neither of those things are real barriers. The only real barrier is hesitation. The moment you let the illusion of fear override your ability to act. And that is why so many people stay stuck. They wait. They wait for the fear to disappear before they take action. They wait for the doubt to subside before they commit. But that moment never comes, because fear does not leave before you take action. It leaves because you take action. It fades only when it is confronted. It is a cowardly thing, and when you move toward it, when you refuse to be ruled by it, it begins to lose its grip. This is what separates the strong from the weak. The weak obey fear. They listen to doubt. They let those illusions dictate their choices. But the strong, those who rise above, understand that fear is nothing but a signal. It is not a command. It does not require obedience. It is simply an indication that you are stepping into something meaningful, something challenging, something that has the power to transform you. And if something has the power to transform you, then it is not something to run from, it is something to run toward. So ask yourself, how much of your life has been stolen by illusions? How many dreams have you abandoned because of fear that never became reality? How many opportunities have you walked away from because doubt convinced you that you weren't ready? And then ask yourself something even more important. What would your life look like if you stopped listening? If you decided once and for all that fear has no authority over you, that doubt has no power unless you give it permission? That choice is yours. It always has been. Fear and doubt are nothing but shadows. They have no substance, no real weight. They exist only in the mind. And the moment you refuse to be ruled by them, the moment you step forward in spite of them, they vanish, and in their place you will find something greater, clarity, strength, and the undeniable truth that you were capable all along. There is no force more powerful in your life than your own will. It is the driving force behind everything you do, every choice you make, every action you take or fail to take. And the simple truth is this: if you are not in control of your will, something else will be. Your emotions, your fears, your habits, the expectations of others, the pressures of society, these things will dictate your life if you do not take command. And if that happens, you will never truly be free. Most people live as if they are passengers in their own lives. They react, they follow impulses. They allow circumstances to determine their direction, and then they wonder why they feel lost, why they feel weak, why they never seem to gain control over the chaos. But the reason is obvious. They have never made the decision to master themselves. They have never trained their will to be stronger than their fleeting desires, stronger than their self-doubt, stronger than the forces constantly pulling them away from who they are meant to become. Because make no mistake, mastering your own will is not easy. It requires discipline. It requires the ability to say no to comfort, to ease, to indulgence, to the things that promise temporary pleasure but offer nothing in the long run. It requires the ability to stay the course when everything in you is screaming for an escape. And most people are not willing to do that. They give in. They choose distraction over purpose, weakness over strength, excuses over action. And in doing so, they become slaves, not to another person, not to some external oppressor, but to themselves, to their own undisciplined minds. The worst part is that they know it. They feel it. That deep frustration, that underlying dissatisfaction with life, it comes from knowing on some level that they have surrendered control, that they are not leading their own existence, but being led by forces they have never taken the time to understand, let alone conquer. And that is a tragedy. Because the ability to take control is always there. The ability to become the master of your own will is within you. It has always been within you. But it requires something most people are unwilling to give: responsibility. You must take responsibility for yourself, for your actions, for your choices, for the direction of your life. No more blaming circumstances. No more waiting for the right time. No more searching for external motivation. If you want to be strong, if you want to be successful, if you want to rise above the ordinary, you must decide right now that nothing outside of you will determine your path. Not fear, not doubt, not fleeting emotions, not the opinions of others. Only you. That is what mastery of the will means. It means that when temptation comes, and it will, you do not waver. When hardship comes, and it will, you do not break. When doubt creeps in, and it will, you do not surrender. It means that you operate on principle, on discipline, on the knowledge that the person you are becoming is worth far more than the comfort of the present moment. And when you do this, something incredible happens. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to respect yourself. You begin to realize that you are capable of far more than you ever imagined, not because the world suddenly became easier, not because the obstacles disappeared, but because you became stronger. You became the kind of person who does not falter, who does not yield, who does not betray their own potential for the sake of convenience. And that kind of person is unstoppable. That kind of person bends reality to their will rather than bent by reality. That kind of person shapes their own destiny rather than being a product of their circumstances. That kind of person is rare, not because they were born different, but because they made a decision to take control, to master themselves, and to never again be a prisoner of weakness. There is a version of you, stronger, wiser, more disciplined, that already exists. It's not a fantasy. It's not some distant dream. It's real, and it's waiting for you. But it will not emerge on its own. It will not come into being simply because you wish it would. It will only become reality when you decide to reach for it, to fight for it, to become the person you are truly capable of being. The problem is most people never do. They stay where they are, trapped in cycles of hesitation, distraction, and self-doubt. They tell themselves they'll change when the time is right, when they feel ready, when circumstances are perfect, but those moments never come. Readiness is a lie. The strongest version of you isn't built in comfort, in ease, in waiting. It's built in struggle. It's built in the moments when everything in you wants to quit, but you don't. And that's the key. The strongest version of you is not something you find, it's something you forge. It's created in every difficult decision, in every disciplined action, in every instance where you choose growth over comfort, strength over weakness, action over excuses. It's there when you push past fear, when you silence doubt, when you refuse to let temporary pain dictate the course of your life. And with every step forward, every time you refuse to yield, you come closer to it. You become it. But understand this, you will never reach it if you continue living as a lesser version of yourself. You will never reach it if you let emotions dictate your actions, if you let fear hold you back, if you allow your own mind to be your prison instead of your weapon. The strongest version of you is waiting, but it will not wait forever. Every day you are either moving toward it or away from it. And the question you must ask yourself is simple. Which direction are you choosing? Because in the end, that is the choice. Either you take control and build yourself into what you were meant to be, or you let the world shape you into something less. Either you embrace discipline and strength, or you surrender to weakness and regret. But if you truly understood what was at stake, if you truly grasped what you are capable of, you would never hesitate again. You would never waste another moment. You would rise step by step until the strongest version of yourself was no longer just waiting. It was real, and it was you. Everything in your life, your strength, your discipline, your success, begins and ends in your mind. Your emotions may try to control you, but they are fleeting, while your will has the power to endure. Your reality is not predetermined. It is shaped by the way you think, the way you act, and the way you choose to rise in the face of adversity. Pain will come, but it is temporary, and the growth it brings is permanent. Fear and doubt will whisper lies to you, but they are nothing more than illusions meant to test your resolve. The question is not whether you have the ability to become something greater. The question is whether you will take control of yourself, whether you will master your will, whether you will reject the weakness that seeks to hold you back. Because the strongest version of yourself is not an abstract idea, it is a reality that exists waiting for you to claim it. But no one can do it for you. No one can force you to rise. That choice belongs to you alone. So decide. Decide to stop waiting. Decide to stop giving in to hesitation, to fear, to fleeting emotions that serve no purpose. Decide once and for all to take responsibility for who you are and who you will become. And when you do, when you commit to this path with everything you have, you will come to understand something profound. You were always capable. You were always strong. You simply had to choose to see it and to live like it.